Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about all the books I read this summer. I'm going to start with July, and the first one I read that month is Straight On to Morning by Liz Bradwell. This is a twisted tale, and it's the Peter Pan retelling. It's basically, what if Wendy went to Neverland with Hook instead of Peter? And it's basically, she makes a deal with Hook to get to Neverland, and she gives Hook something that will help him to destroy Neverland. So Wendy has to team up with Tinkerbell and Peter to stop him from destroying Neverland. There isn't actually a lot of Peter in this book. It's mainly Wendy and Tinkerbell, which I actually really loved because I love their hate to love friendship. So yeah, there's mermaids in this, there's pirates obviously, and then there's the Lost Boys who are always my favourite character in any Peter Pan retelling or Peter Pan in general. The Lost Boys are always my favourite characters, and this is no different. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. No, I didn't. I gave this one 3 stars. It's not my favourite Twisted Tale story, but it's definitely not my least favourite Twisted Tale. And the second book I read in July is Wonders of the Invisible World by Christopher Barzak. This is my favourite book I read in July. I gave this one 4 stars, and it's basically about this kid. He's going through life in the background, not talking to anyone, only speaking to his family. He has no memories of the years before until this boy comes back into his life who he can't remember, and he's slowly starting to remember with the help of this new boy. It's basically, he finds out his mum has been lying to him his entire life, and she tries to make excuses for it, but I can't stand the mum in this book. But yeah, I loved the main character and the new guy who actually becomes his boyfriend. The book is basically just him trying to find out his story, his past, and yeah. The third book I read in July is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. This is the third and last installment of the Ark of Scythe series by this author, and the ending of The Thunderhead. I was looking forward to this book so much, but I don't know, it was kind of, for the last book, it was kind of boring for me anyway. He packed like 4 or 5 years into this book, and it didn't work for me. But I liked how it ended, but just didn't like the execution of the ending of this book. The last bit, but I didn't like how it got there, basically. It was just so boring. For me anyway. Other people might like it, but because I loved the other 2 books, it was just a bit of a letdown for me. The last book I read in July is Fugitive XIII by Rob Sinclair. This character in this series was brought up in this terrorist organisation, and in the first book he escapes that organisation, and is basically the first and second one is basically him trying to destroy that organisation, stop them from taking young boys like him, and turning them into what he turned into, basically. So yeah, I like this one. This is the third one in the series, and I definitely will be picking it up. I gave this book 3.5 stars, but small along 4 stars, and then it was 3 stars. And that is it for July. On to August. The first book I read in August is The Reptile Room, which is the second book in a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. I like this book because I saw this book, and it seems like the kids are finally going to have a good life after what happened in the first book. But like the title says, it's just a series of unfortunate events, and I can't really say much about it because there's only 200 pages. They can't really say anything without spoiling it. But yeah, it's basically him meeting their new uncle who owns a bunch of reptiles, hence the name Reptile Room. I'm happy, but like the rest of the series is probably going to be, it ends up with them sad. Yeah, I gave this book 4 stars. Next book I read was Frankenstein. I can't really see it. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Okay, I ended up giving this book 2 stars in the end. and that's because it was so boring. He brings a guy to life, but besides that, not a lot happens. And the stuff that does happen, we're told about it. We're not shown it. We don't go along with it, but stuff which kind of does make sense because the book is basically a massive letter from this one guy to his sister. But it's just, I think it could have been better. But for that time period, it probably was amazing. But for now, I'm just definitely not the reader for this book. So yeah, I gave it 2 stars. Which was quite upsetting really, because I was kind of looking forward to it. I read in August was Finale by Stephanie Garber. This is actually my favourite book in the trilogy, mainly because it's from both Taylor and Scarlett's perspectives. So we can see how both their stories end from them telling us, from them showing us. So yeah, I liked how this ended. I liked how it all brought it all together. From the ending of the second book, yeah, it did really well. I gave this one 4 stars. This book I read in August is Revengeful by V.E. Schwab. Okay, I did the first one, Vicious, and then I find out there's a second one. I just didn't think it was necessary because the first one ended well. It seemed like a standalone to me, but then I picked up the second one, I started reading it, and I loved it. I loved it just as much as I loved the first one. I loved all the characters again. I actually ended up giving it 4 stars in the end. This is 5 years on from Vicious, and it's just telling us how it got to now, what happened in those 5 years. As I read in September, the first one I read is The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. This book is set during the Rodney King riots in 1992, and the main character is a black girl living in a white neighborhood, going to a predominantly white school. And Drew finished this book, so I don't really know what to say about it, but I do know that I didn't like her, like not even a little bit. But at the end, I loved her. I grew to love all the characters, and I think that's what the book was supposed to do. And on to the second one I read in September, and that is Fahrenheit 451. Was not the book for me. I ended up giving it 2 stars in the end because, okay, it was written like 60 years ago, and I had no idea what was happening, and because it just wasn't the book for me. I didn't like any of the characters. I had no idea what was going on half the time. It was kind of disappointing because I was looking forward to this book because I read the premise and I thought it was going to be good, but it just wasn't because my dad read this book and he loved it, so it just was not for me. And the last book I read in September was The Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. Final book in the Darker Shade of Magic series. And I liked how it ended. I did. It's just black magic from Black London has come to Red London and it's basically taken over the city and it's basically to find ways to destroy magic. And yeah, 4 stars. I can't really say much about it just other than the fact that I loved it. I liked how it ended. Out of all the books that I finished these past 3 months, out of all the series that I finished these past 3 months, this is definitely my favourites. And that is all the books that I've read past 3 months. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe, and I'll see you next video. Bye!